The network of women with disability have appealed to the federal government of Nigeria to create awareness on climate change, that non-information on climate change suffers them being vulnerable. Also cried out to the federal government to involve them in decision-making and intervention. Speaking during a day training on climate change for women with disability held in Abuja, listening to what the participants and program managers have to say.
My name is Okachi Cynthia. Women with disability have been so much sidelined at the helm of affairs, especially when it comes to decision making. So we urge the government to ensure that women with disability are included and mainstreamed into every initiative and interventions carried out by the government or organizations, so that they too can add their voices in advocating for climate change, since they are the most vulnerable and most disadvantaged when it comes to issues about climate change. This training has been quite impactful. It has given women with disability a platform to get themselves built in the area of climate change, to get their capacity built in order for them to go out in the society and advocate, to be a voice that speaks to climate justice in Nigeria. At this point, everyone has to see this issue as their issue, and this is exactly what we are doing, first by creating awareness at the level of women with disability, so they too can step down this training into the society to other organizations of women with disability, so that together we can become a collective voice that speaks to this issue.
My name is Rose Daniel. I am the monitoring and evaluation officer of this project, which was sponsored by Disability Rights Fund. And the essence of this training is for us to create a network which is called the Climate Action Network, where we train women with disabilities on how to advocate on the issues of climate change as it affects women with disabilities. We can see that the world generally is changing, the climate is changing, and it has adverse effects on women with disabilities. In fact, we are the ones that are being affected most, because when it comes to when there are floodings and droughts, we are the ones that are always at the forefront. We are always affected most because of our disabilities and also because of our gender. So this training today is for women to advocate for government to bring up policies that are accessible and inclusive, so that we will have an environment, an enabling environment to thrive as women with disabilities.
Okay, as the federal government in any way play a pivotal role in people with disability?
To the best of my knowledge, I don't think there is any intervention from the federal government, because I think it will be very good for federal government to know that we need materials that are accessible. Like, for example, when there is an information by NEMA, people with disability need that information to be accessible, because a woman with hearing impairment will need a sign language interpreter to interpret it for her, in order for her to be able to know what the information is all about. And also, a woman that is visually impaired needs those type of information in a printed, in a braille print, so that she'll be able to access that information. So I think federal government should be very intentional when it comes to intervention. In fact, we will also need representation in all the intervention, and also in drafting policies on climate change. They should give us representation. We need to have women with disabilities at the decision-making table and also in the drafting of policy that has to do with climate change.
My name is Emmanuel Ayogo. I am the project officer on this particular project titled Promotion of Inclusion of Women with Disability in Climate Action, Climate Programming and Climate Policy in Nigeria. So the program is aimed at ensuring that the voices of women with disability is represented in climate change action and policy formulation and initiatives that helps to build resilience, climate change resilience. So we are trying to build the capacity of women with disability to actually go out there, engage with public and private institutions in an advocacy effort to ensure that any program, policy, and then other actions that is aimed at mitigating climate change outcomes carries the component of disability inclusion. So that is what this program today is all about. The Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Prohibition Act of 2018 was signed in accordance with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability and other international protocols on disability inclusion. So that's a milestone. That is a big milestone that the federal government has actually helped to achieve for persons with disability. But what we are trying to call government attention to is that government needs to ensure that these actions, its actions on inclusion, its action on climate change, that such action should be inclusive. Such action should take into consideration the needs and perspectives of persons with disability, especially women with disability, because we know that the women with disability are the hardest hit in terms of climate change outcomes. They are the hardest hit. So government is doing enough, but we are doing a lot, but we are also calling for more intervention. We are also calling for more policy and legal framework that ensures proper inclusion of persons, especially women with disability in Nigeria.
Okay, so what do you have to say about the low rate of people with disability decision making in Nigeria, especially in politics?
Okay, so the low level of participation and representation of women with disability and even people with disability generally, it's actually sad thing in our society, bearing in mind that there is a law, the law that I talked about earlier, which is the Disability Act law, actually guarantees equal participation for persons with disability. However, the operationalizing of that law or the implementation of it is actually where we have challenge. And it's sad because the population of persons with disability in Nigeria is, according to United Nations statistics, it's well over 25 million. So that's demography in Nigeria needs to be represented properly in terms of our politics, in terms of our governance, even in economics, in the economic life of Nigeria. So they need to be represented. And for this to happen, government needs to begin to enforce some of its laws. Government needs to enforce some of its policies on inclusion. Government needs to begin to take proactive measures to ensure that the inclusion is not only on paper, that it is actualized in these different areas that we have talked about, which is politics, governance, and other social and economic sphere of Nigeria.
Atonda Babatunde, GTV Africa.